here and give it a second. Good morning, good morning. Testing and make sure everything is as it should. You guys know the drill by now if you've been here more than once. If you haven't been here more than once, this is the drill. Let me see. Hold on. Perfect. Okay. I'm seeing where I'm at. And we're just like a minute early, so we're going to give people a chance to hop on there. So taking our time to get started. I don't know if you guys have had fun over the past few months in regards to the birding activity going on, because this year's had a lot of natural food. So we had a long period of nothing going on at the feeders to a whole lot of something going on at the feeders, and now the temperatures have kind of risen again. So it's like activities all over the place. So have fun with that, but I hope you guys are still kind of enjoying the birds at your feeders. Hopefully you're still getting a lot of the regulars. I know that cardinals have been pretty reliable during this season as well. But it's definitely starting to pick up, and we are also right near the holidays and right near Christmas, so I hope you all have done your shopping or getting your last minute goodies so nobody's fumbling on Christmas Eve. So hope you guys are ready for that as well. And we made it through another year of presentations, but I guess I should say that for after we finish this one. So it'll be, it's a whole lot of things, right? But with that, it is 8:30, so we're going to go ahead and just hop right into it. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Jolene. I'm a certified songbird feeding specialist with Wild Birds Unlimited of Concord, and today we are going to be talking about kinglets, which I absolutely love these birds. They're a lot of fun. If they're usually a very prevalent winter species that we have, so if you haven't seen one yet, keep an eye out, but we're going to talk a lot about them today. So if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll be sure to respond when I can to that as well too. So one thing that's fun about kinglets in general is that these birds are in the scientific family Regulidae, which actually just translates from Latin to petty king. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of their feathers, which I'll leave that as a surprise for the next slide, essentially. There are 6 species of kinglets, 2 of which can be found in North America, the Ruby-crowned Kinglet and the Golden-crowned Kinglet. So this is an example of the Ruby-crowned Kinglet right there as well, too. In regards to habitat, these birds prefer more of a spruce, pine, or coniferous forest, so areas with obviously spruce, pine trees, fir trees, junipers, things like that, those that don't lose their leaves in the wintertime as well. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining today. I appreciate it. So they also enjoy mixed coniferous forests, so you can have a mix of primarily these evergreen trees as well as some deciduous, those that do lose their leaves. From here, we can kind of see that these birds are migratory. Their map is a really interesting one, honestly. So they have a lot of a very big northern range for their breeding season. So this is that orange area that dips down farther in the western portion of the states than it does the eastern portion. But this orange area is where they're found in the summertime. And then as the temperatures get colder, so in the winter and when breeding season is over, they fly all the way down to the southern portion of North America into a lot of Mexico as well. So there's a large gap where they can't be found in the Midwest of the states, which is really interesting as well too. In the western side, you do see some purple here, and that is their year-round range. So regardless of what season it is, you can definitely find ruby-crowned kinglets in this area as well. The oldest kinglet on record was found to be 8 years and 8 months old through banding practices. Essentially, they will capture these birds originally, they'll band them and release them, and then depending on when it is recaptured again, if they do already have a band, they're able to kind of, double check their records and see when they first captured this bird as well. So it was recaptured and released in Texas in 2017, but it was banded in Texas in 2008, which also helps us learn a lot about their general range, if they return to the same spot or if they have a tendency to kind of pick wherever they like during after migration season is over as well. Our other kinglet is the golden-crowned kinglet. These birds actually migrate a little bit earlier than the ruby-crowned kinglets. Oftentimes, in the fall season, leaving their breeding grounds in August, and then when the winter season is over, returning back to their breeding grounds in April. So they're here for a pretty good duration of the season, but they'll migrate earlier than ruby-crowned kinglets, and often they'll migrate later than other warblers because they often share a very similar diet, so they don't want to be out competing or trying to compete with a lot of other activity from other insect-eating birds. Now, what is fun about migration for some of these birds is that they are also, some of them are also altitude migrants. So in certain cases, From their map here, we can see they have a breeding range that definitely extends very far up into Canada, but they also have a very prevalent year-round range, right? So you can see that a lot on the coast and in some of the Rockies, as well as northeast for the US and some of Canada again as well too. And then the blue range, once again, is their wintering range, which you can see they definitely spread out during that time of year. But oftentimes in places, especially out west as well, when it hits winter season, and if they're at higher altitudes and that's too cold for them, they'll often just fly to a lower altitude, not super far, but where temperatures are more moderate, and stay in that area as well for the winter before going back up to the mountains. There is possibly some potential for that over here as well. In North Carolina, there is a smattering of like the year-round range on the border of like Texas, oh my goodness, I said Texas in the last slide, Tennessee and North Carolina. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of that happens as well, but they definitely spread out much farther in the winter season as well. And the oldest golden-crowned kinglet on record here is 6 years and 4 months old, both recaptured and released once again in Minnesota back in 1976. So it's really fun to see those records and see how long they last over time as well. So when it comes to identifying these birds, they are tiny, and sometimes, especially the ruby-crowned kinglets, can be a little nondescript. They are definitely just a small, round bird if you're not sure what to look for. They have a very thin bill, which is sometimes comparable to warblers, but I'd say, honestly, they can be a little bit smaller than some of your warblers. They're very close to kind of chickadee-sized, if I had to compare them to a specific bird. And they also have, like, shorter wings and tail as well, so nothing too distinct about the overall shape, but they are small, and that can be distinctive enough for sure. In regards to their movements, that can sometimes be very helpful to distinguish them as well too. I oftentimes consider them to move a lot similar to chickadees as well, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but that behavior and that movement can also be a very big indicator for ID as well. When it comes specifically to the ruby-crowned kinglet, some important things to note if you have this nondescript bird in your yard trying to figure out who he is the fact that these birds do have an uneven eye ring. So the eye ring is basically, it's usually like a white line of feathers around the eye, and you'll notice towards, at least in this photo, on the left and the right side, it's kind of a little bit farther out, but towards the top and the bottom, it's much thinner. So that's that uneven eye ring style, and you can see it in both photos, how much more drastic it is on the left and the right versus the top and the bottom. Some other birds have a very clean eye ring, so that can be a helpful indicator. These birds also have a white wing bar with a short black wing bar. So if we look at this bottom right photo, you'll notice we have the white wing bar that goes, goodness, I'm going to assume horizontally. We're not going to know our directions here today. But we have a white wing bar that goes across the wing, and right underneath it is a shorter black wing bar that is also very distinct as well. So those can be helpful indicators. And then what's really nice about these birds too is that they have yellow highlights along the edges of their feathers. And there's not too many birds that we have in this area during the winter that visit the feeders that have that specific, oh my goodness, that specific look to them. So for example, the only two that come to mind that visit the feeders regularly during this time of year that have those yellow highlights would be our pine siskins and our ruby-crowned kinglets. And for them, obviously usually their body shape and how they eat and all that kind of stuff is very different, which is a nice distinguisher as well. Now with the ruby-crowned kinglets, these are the one species of the kinglets where their crown is not always visible. Females do not have that ruby crown, while the males do, and oftentimes if they are not alert or not competing for certain resources, that crown will be flush with the top of its head, and you might be able to see a red dot that's barely visible there too. So it kind of depends on what they're doing as to whether or not you're seeing it. So you can't really use that as a specific indicator to determine like the species. There's other things you can look at first before trying to check for that as well. Let's see. Now when it comes to their song and call, one thing I want to mention as well, so with birds in general, I'll just leave it on here for a second. So for birds in general, they have two distinct kind of sound categories, right? I'm working with the best words that I have today, and they are not that great. So they have two distinct categories. They have their songs and they have their calls. Songs are often done during breeding season. They're most often performed by the males, but this varies with each species, and they are usually longer, more complex, and they help with alerting territory or potentially attracting mates or keeping other competing males out of the area as well. So these are often done during breeding season. You can have some birds that will perform them year round, but they're usually much longer and more complex. Calls, on the other hand, can be done throughout the year. They are very short in function, and they're used to basically alarm and communicate with other individuals in the area about potential food resources, predators, things like that as well too. So for the winter season, we're not really going to hear their songs as much. We're going to hear more of their calls, but it's always fun to hear both because they can be very distinct. And I'll play both the ruby-crowned and the golden-crowned back to back when we talk about both in a second. So first off is the song for the ruby-crowned kinglet. So it starts with that high-pitched kind of buzzing sound before it descends a little bit faster. And all things considered, it's a very long song in comparison. Now the call for the ruby-crowned kinglet, goodness, let me see, is much shorter, and it's definitely like a two-part kind of sound. So it's like a 1 2 1 2 1 2. So for the call itself, there's not much to it, but that kind of harsh buzz rasp does sound different compared to like the chip of a cardinal or potentially a housefinch. So keep an eye on that. You can definitely use that to help ID certain birds as well, even during this time of year if you don't see them first. Now with the golden-crowned kinglet, these guys are a little bit more obvious. They have that very obvious golden crown, sometimes more of a yellow depending on the male or the female. Outside of that, it is important to note they have a very nice long white eyebrow, and they have a white bar underneath the eye as well. Kind of similar to the ruby-crowned, they have that unevenness to those colorations, so the left and the right are just with the color pattern and how it fades out is a little bit distinct as well. We're trying with these words. Life is hard sometimes. So one thing that is really cool about these birds, so unlike the ruby-crowned kinglet, where the males have the red and the females do not, both the male and the female golden crowns do have that yellow crown. Main difference is that the males can have a richer coloration. So they might have more of a yellow or orange color, as you can see in this bottom right, where you have that deeper orange in the center and some of the lighter yellow on the sides, while the females primarily have just a lighter yellow. Again, that is not always something that you can see when the crowns are basically relaxed essentially. So it's not a indicator you can use all the time to identify sex, but it is definitely a really cool thing to consider. Similar to the rubies as well, they do have some of that yellow wing highlight, but you'll notice that their entire back kind of has that olive green yellow coloration. So it's kind of not as contrasting. It kind of blends right into it. They do still have a subtle white wing bar. So just to show again, with the ruby crown, they have a very contrasting white wing bar. The golden crown is a little bit more subtle that you can see in this top photo, but they do have a very striking short black wing bar that can be more distinctive as well. Now with the song for the golden-crowned kinglet, theirs is much shorter compared to the ruby crown. So I'm going to play it once and then I'll kind of go back and forth really quick. Not really quick, but here's the first one. So it kind of goes up in pitch before it drops a little bit. It still has that sharp kind of whistling tone before it drops into those shorter chatters. And just to compare that once again to this guy. So in regards to song, the ruby crown has a lot more to say than the golden. Oh, that's not the one I looked for. And meanwhile, with the call, more of a 3-note than a 2-note, and a little bit more shrill versus a rasp. Oh, hold on. It'll be nice to meet you. So again, those can be good indicators to distinguish those species as well. Now, when it comes to diet in general, these birds are more insect eaters. I mentioned earlier that they can compete a little bit with the warblers, so the golden-crowned especially waits until a lot of them pass through before migrating themselves, depending on like the location. So these guys focus more on spiders, insects, and their different types of eggs, potentially overwintering insects as well. In the wintertime, they can focus a little bit more on fruit and seed, depending on what's available. They have very large winter ranges, so depending on the season and the temperatures, those insects may not always be as prevalent as they would be during the summertime. They can also take advantage of sapsucker wells. So another winter species that we get as well is the yellow-bellied sapsucker. They oftentimes will go after trees that are not always in the best health and can make little rectangular looking pockets kind of side by side to access the sap in trees. And kinglets have no problem taking advantage of those areas as well. Now, for these birds, they forage more in like the forest understory. So they're not going to be heavily up in the upper canopy, but they will kind of still focus on like the outer branches and horizontal areas, unlike the woodpeckers or nuthatches that might focus more on the trunks of trees and kind of like on the upside down part of them as well and everything like that as well. They have a few different types of foraging strategies, but one of the main ones that they'll utilize is gleaning. This is kind of when they'll have no problem getting to the underside of leaves or branches and kind of hover and snagging certain foods there as well too. So I'm going to show two examples. Let me see where I am at. So for example, this is an example of the ruby-crowned foraging. So one thing I want you to keep in mind is one, their movement patterns. They move very quick. There's a lot of wing fluttering. There's not very much pausing when they do a lot of movements, and those can be very indicative of determining which birds you're looking at as you're trying to ID them. So you'll see that, again, they're kind of fluttering the wings every now and then, and that's just a behavior that's very common in ruby-crowned kinglets. And this is just an example of what that, like if you're looking through binoculars, what this kind of behavior would look like. You're not always going to get a perfect look. They're going to be on the move and pretty quick. So we can see those yellow highlights in the wings. You can pay attention for that flash of the white wing bar. If we're lucky, we can see like the partial eye ring. Sometimes it depends on lighting and what's available, but these movements can be very helpful to pay attention to as well. And then in regards to the golden-crowned, here's an example of them as well. This one is in slow motion, and this is just a really cool example of that kind of gleaning or foraging behavior. So oftentimes, they'll sit on a branch, they'll kind of observe the surrounding area, they'll flutter, kind of snag a food item before kind of perching or potentially flying back. Honestly, it's really fun to see their dexterity in flight, essentially, and just being able to focus so easily on where they want to go and what they're looking for as well. So with the golden-crowned kinglet, even from a distance, it's easier to see that yellow kind of mohawk or that crown that's on the top of their head. You can see that nice white eyebrow that's right above their eye. The wing bars are very distinct here as well, so even if it may not always look up close, you can see it from a distance. Sometimes in this case, again, it's slow-mo. It looks like the golden-crowned doesn't move as quickly as the ruby, but it also does not do as much wing fluttering in its general movements there as well. So these are all good things to kind of pay attention to, because again, birds do not sit still in the wild. It makes things tricky. So keeping an eye on these different things can be very helpful for ID as well. So something that's fun about both of these species is that the golden-crowned kinglets are able to tolerate cooler temperatures than the ruby-crowned, so they have no problem wintering farther up north. Meanwhile, the ruby-crowns are more of a generalist, so they have no problem kind of checking out different places and investigating different things. So oftentimes the ruby-crowns are who we will be seeing at the bird feeders rather than the golden-crowned kinglets. These birds also will utilize their crest in a variety of different performative displays, especially during nesting season. So they will often do flight chases or those displays against other males to establish like dominance over a territory, and as they're competing for potential mates as well too. In the wintertime, something that's awesome is that these birds often utilize mixed species flocks. So in the summer, when these birds are nesting, staying busy, oftentimes the males will kind of stake out certain areas as a territory, and they're very competitive over these territories, oftentimes not letting other males or potential, um, what's the word? Opponents, we're going to go with that, into that territory because they want to use it to attract potential mates and also have enough resources to raise their young. So this happens all throughout the summer. Variety of species will often be super competitive, but as we get into the wintering season and they are no longer focused on raising their young, they basically kind of take it easy. They'll molting seasons in fall. So they basically put on their pajamas, take it easy, take a chill pill, and they're more willing to cooperate with other species, right? So mixed species flocks are very fun. They're very common in the wintertime, and essentially you'll have many different species all kind of chilling out in the same area, and that's actually beneficial for a variety of reasons. First off, it's great for defense against other predators. Oftentimes, if a bird is foraging alone or defending a specific territory, they have to stand a lot of time on guard as they're looking for food or resources and making sure that they're kind of ahead of the game, for example. But when you're not worried about that and you're working with others, everybody's taking an equal amount of time to kind of look for predators. So there's less time standing guard and there's more time finding food for your own survival. More eyes and like more individuals also helps with more foraging ground explored. You don't have to use as much energy because everybody's kind of covering more ground to find those resources. And you may also think like, okay, well, we've got more eyes, but also more mouths, so shouldn't they go through food faster in a certain area, and wouldn't that be counterproductive? In this case, actually, no. Oftentimes, a lot of species in these multi-species flocks forage in different locations. So you've got some that specialize on the outer branches, like chickadees, focusing on like the seeds and leaves at the very ends of branches. You've also got those that focus on tree trunks, like woodpeckers and nuthatches, and even they specialize in different types of foods or different types of nooks and crannies, right? Then you've also got ground foragers, like your doves, who wouldn't really be paying attention to what anything is going on over there, right? So they all take advantage of different levels of habitat without overcompeting, which is really neat. And it's very fun when you have different, goodness, apologies. If you have situations where there is a predator in the area and somebody does alarm call to alert others that they are there, you can often see other birds start to alarm as well, and you start to see the individuals that are in these flocks as well too. So if you hear a lot of chaos outside, might be worth taking a look because you never know who you're going to find in that area. Now, we don't usually get kinglets for nesting unless you're in the mountains, but oftentimes it can still be interesting to talk about. So I mentioned earlier that these birds do focus on spruce fir forests. In the winter, they can be a little bit more generalist, but during nesting season, that's what they're going for, and they often pick a high or remote location. So oftentimes, it was actually hard for, at least while I was doing some research into different photos, it's very hard for people to get a good look at these nests in the first place. Males will often set up the territory, and like I said, they often flare crests a lot when competing with other males. So you're going to be seeing a lot of that in nesting season. And they make a deep hanging style cup nest. So they often weave it between like two branches and kind of have it underneath a little bit there as well. They can utilize things like lichen, moss, webs, and twigs on the outside, and then they have softer material on the inside, including even insect cocoons, which is really interesting. The females will be ones that build the nest, and it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 days to build the nest, so they can be pretty quick. Ruby crowns have a very different strategy from golden crowns. They often make a nest that can disintegrate very easily, so it wouldn't be surprising for them to have to kind of repair it as things are going on, and these are definitely not nests that are utilized for the next season. Meanwhile, golden crowns take a different strategy. They have a four-cornered cup nest that essentially they make as a hammock first before lining the outer pieces with like bark and kind of adding onto it as well too. So two very different strategies for these species as well. Something that's really interesting about these birds during nesting is that one clutch can be 78% of one female's body mass, right? So these birds have the record for having the largest clutch of any North American passerine for its size. So basically what that means is in North America, these birds have for their size, the largest clutch size. And that can range anywhere from 5 to 12 eggs for the ruby-crowned and 3 to 11 eggs for the golden-crowned, which is a lot. It is a lot for these tiny songbirds, which is absolutely insane to me. And golden crowns can have anywhere from 1 to 2 broods, so they're probably not going to get 11 in both, but still, the potential for anything can be very concerning there. And what's even more interesting is that the golden-crowned males will often care for that first brood after fledging. So because the female could potentially incubate some more eggs for a second brood, the male will take those fledglings and help raise them. And he can, I think there's records of people saying that they've taken care of like 9 at one time. So they're very, and they take care of those 9 and they still feed the female. So they're definitely a very dedicated parent, and it's quite impressive. So oftentimes that incubation and nesting period takes it close to 5 weeks, and after that they're independent after around 17 days after fledging. So the male doesn't have to keep it up for long, but still 17 days is 17 days of a lot of mouths to feed, so that is definitely very impressive. When it comes to trying to attracting these birds in the winter time, again, we talked about a few different things, right? So these birds are primarily insectivores. They do take advantage of some fruit and some seed, and they are very small, and they are capable of some clinging. So they have no problem attaching to something horizontally. That just may not be their preferred method of foraging in trees and things like that as well, too, right? So suet is one of the best options to offer for these birds to come to the feeders. Suet is rendered beef fat mixed in with a variety of different ingredients, such as mealworms, peanuts, different types of tree nuts, fruit, things like that, essentially. A lot of different things you can offer. And it's a great option for this time of year because as the temperatures are cooling down, we don't know what our temperatures are doing yet, but we're getting colder temperatures. You want to offer suets because a lot of birds this time of year are looking for fat. Fat is an easy thing for the birds to store on their body. It's great for producing a lot of energy to help keep them warm and to stay active as well too. So if you have fattier foods, those are great for this time of year, and suet is wonderful for the kinglets specifically. It's probably their preferred choice if you want to get them to the feeders. Bark butter or bark butter bits, I'll just add as like another option of suet in general. It's a Wild Birds Unlimited product, and bark butter is a spreadable type of suet. So you can actually spread it on the trunk of a tree, so you don't even have to utilize a feeder, and it's a great option to kind of see what birds will stop by. So certain birds such as like, God, there's so many that'll use it. Over 150 different species will. But I have seen multiple types of warblers. I've seen kinglets, brown creepers, various types of woodpeckers, nuthatches, blue jays. I've seen my cardinals go for it, and they're not even supposed to be clinging birds, so that's always a fun time. But you get a lot of different birds with that activity, and as the weather is colder, that is a great option to offer. Other things that you can try as well, mealworms are a good option. Again, it's an insect eater, so it doesn't hurt to offer that. And as we kind of saw before, they do take advantage of some seed and some seed and some fruit. So sunflower chips de-shelled is a great option to offer. I've seen many different birds go for that as well. Oftentimes, if other resources are not available, I've seen bluebirds, which are a well-known insect eater, to also go for sunflower chips if things are that crazy. So definitely caters to a very wide audience for that as well too. If food options are not something you can essentially offer in your yard, I would consider a few different natural options if you have the chance to do so. Reducing pesticides in your yard will help protect a lot of your pollinators and a lot of overwintering insects that the kinglets or other birds may take advantage of. So either they'll finish their life cycle and be able to continue pollinating a lot of the plants that we have in our yard, or they are potentially utilized as resources for other wildlife making it through the winter season. Leaving the leaves in certain sections of the yard can be very conducive to this as well too. Oftentimes a lot of pollinators will make cocoons of some kind that are often kind of trapped in like dried leaves, and when they fall, so do those cocoons or those overwintering areas. So what you can do is kind of brush those leaves gently to the side, keep a natural area where you leave the leaves alone, and that'll kind of help with that as well. And many birds will kind of forage through that leaf litter too. So both of those things can be very helpful. There's a variety of native plants that these birds go for. So you can also start to take stock of what's in your yard and see what produces or what fruits, berries in the wintertime that can also help support a lot of the wildlife that we have as well too. So definitely different things to offer and different things to consider as we're keeping an eye out for our kinglets as well. And again, the ruby-crowned kinglet's primarily the one that we'll be seeing at the feeders, but if you've got a lot of pine trees or spruce trees, you may even see a golden-crowned in the wintertime as well, which is super exciting. I love them both. They're very fun, small little birds, so I hope you guys get the chance to see them as well this season. So with that, for those that are planning on shopping in the store today, I have a coupon for $5 off a $25 purchase or more. The coupon code is Kinglet, so feel free to use that either in store or through a phone order as well too. We'll be doing a second viewing of this presentation at 11 in case you know anybody in the area that might be interested in stopping in as well, and getting some last minute Christmas shopping done too. But a lot of the video and photos, and honestly a lot of the imagery and stuff like that came from the Macaulay Library at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. It's a great resource where anybody can upload photos and audio and video, and basically it's a huge library and archive that you can investigate different birds around the world on as well. Allaboutbirds.org is a great easy resource to use, so if you want to learn more about one of your backyard birds, you can definitely search it up in there. Birds of the World is another scientific resource I utilize, and that's where we get the range maps and everything as well too. So lots of different resources to kind of check out if you're ever feeling like that as well. And with that, that is all I have to say about kinglets. And we have made it through another year of presentations, which is absolutely crazy. I definitely could not do it without you guys, so I appreciate the time, whether it's 5 minutes, the whole thing, all that kind of stuff that you guys take to check out these presentations. It means a lot. And as we get closer to the holidays, and right around the corner essentially, I hope everybody has a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'm not sure which ones happen this time of year, but I hope you all have a nice one. And I know it's also the time of year where sometimes the holidays are harder to work through if we're missing somebody at that table or we have lost a loved one. So I hope with you guys, you have a very peaceful and nice Christmas or holiday, and take the time to enjoy it where you can. But with that said, thank you all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next year. So enjoy the birds in the meantime, and I will see you then. Thank you. Bye.